What's going on, everybody? TNF Podcast. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Do me a big favor. Let's help the algorithm out a little bit here. And if you're listening on Spotify, give us a follow. All of our back catalog is currently uploaded on there. And if you like listening to podcasts versus watching them, I know a lot of people don't have YouTube Premium because it has if you have standard YouTube, it has ads, and a lot of people have Spotify. Head on over to Spotify. Give us a follow. That would be greatly appreciated. And let's talk about some shows that we have in the pipeline here. Look at how professional I am. All right. Coming up, we've got Rebecca Lore on the 2nd of February at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. She is the hardcore cheerleader. She does little cheerleading and dancing movements to hardcore songs and puts them on TikTok and social media. We've got CJ Klemonski from Death Threat and One Life Crew. That is going to be on the 16th of February at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. If you'll notice, we don't have a show on the 9th Sunday because that's Super Bowl Sunday, which I don't give a shit about, but you know, a lot of people do, so I don't think people will be watching. So we didn't do a show. So enjoy your day off. And then we've got Scott Dano from Bleeding Through and The Suffering. That's going to be on the 23rd of February at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We just added Raghunath Das, Ray Capo from Youth of Today, Shelter, and Better Than 1,000. That's going to be on the 9th of March at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're still working on a date for Frank Novinek from Hatebreed, Terror, Ringworm, and Integrity. So stay tuned. That's to be announced. And as you can see there at the bottom, I have an official merchandising company, Hell's Heart Merch Co. Go to the address, hellsheartco.bigcartel.com. Use the code 20 for 20% off your entire order. Everything you buy will be 20% off. And we've got some fine quality Bella Canvas t-shirts. They're 50% polyester, 25% cotton, and 25% rayon. You'll love them. As you can see, I am wearing the RoboCop versus Terminator one, in which the RoboCop is winning, but I also have an edition where the Terminator is winning. And it's pretty apt that it's a comic book design, because today we have a returning guest. He did the show, I'd say, a few months ago, and he is currently working on the 2nd edition of his comic book Kill Stan, which the first one is selling like hotcakes. I've seen it. It looks amazing. He just did a little video promo for it with some awesome like trap music, and it that had me hooked right there. I was loving it. But and he's also a stand-up comedian. Ladies and gentlemen, Deece Casillas, what's going on, man? Welcome back.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me, man.
Dude, I really appreciate you coming on the show again, and I'm really stoked for what you're doing. I think that it's awesome, and I failed to mention that you actually inspired me to start writing a comic book, and I got some advice and some pointers from you on that. And so I guess my question for you would be, and we talked about this a little bit backstage, but for the audience purposes, like how's the book doing? What are you doing? Are you touring the comic book circuit? Are you going to the conventions? What's going on?
Oh, yeah. I've been hitting conventions on probably every other weekend doing some sort of show. Some local where I live in Texas, some on the road. And it's been great. Honestly, like I cannot, it's been hard to complain about any aspect of it. The sales have been good. We've been getting into a lot of shops. People are telling other people about it. I'm getting people messaging me with reviews, telling me their friend told them about it and they ordered a copy. So, I mean, I'm not selling millions of copies, but as far as an indie comic book is going, man, it's really been great. I mean, we just did a 2-day show in San Antonio. And I mean, in 2 days, we sold almost 50 books, so that's,
wow.
It's been great.
That's fucking fantastic. And I believe I have a positive attitude that eventually you will sell multiple books. Because like I said, the book looks really good. It's kind of up my alley. I know you had mentioned it was a neo-noir type book. And so just to kind of catch everybody up to speed, because I know you had mentioned this on the previous show, but what is the premise for Kill Stan? And without giving too much away, obviously spoilers and whatever, but what is the premise of the first book and how does that lead into the second book? Just give us a little bit of juicy tidbits as far as that's concerned.
Yeah. So the elevator pitch is suicide by vigilantism. Stan wants to die, so he decides to kill himself through vigilantism. He head on the streets and enact some justice, assuming he'll get taken out real quickly because he has no training or anything. And that's kind of it on its surface. I kind of trick people with this book because I bill it as like a neo-noir crime thriller. But the reality is you're going to find out that this is actually just a character piece about this guy and his personal loss and trauma and basically the crazy things we do when we feel like we have nothing left to live for. Which I feel like is part of the reason I love this story so much and I'm so passionate about it, is because it really is, to me, something that anyone can kind of understand and feel like they've been there, like everyone's been at not like a rock bottom or feel like they have nowhere else to turn and feel desperate to have to, whether it's make rent or this or that, just, at the end of the rope. Right. And this is kind of a manifestation of taking that to the nth degree and someone just absolutely not giving a fuck and seeing where that takes them when they really don't care if they live or die. And if you've read number one, there's a huge cliffhanger at the end of number one. Number two picks up and we kind of have to, I guess you got to find out what, if Stan has survived and what maybe has, maybe hasn't, and what that means for the rest of this book if he, moving forward.
Dude, I love a good revenge story. I just watched this movie Rolling Thunder with William Devane and
Okay.
Tommy Lee Jones. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a really great story. I think it was made in 1974, I believe, but they were talking about it on a YouTube channel and they were saying it was one of Quentin Tarantino's favorite movies ever. So I was like, well, I got to check this out because I generally appreciate Tarantino's taste in films. And so it's about this guy and he comes back from Vietnam and they award him at some public ceremony $2,500 worth of silver dollars. And as this is broadcast on the news, somebody sees it and they go to his house to rob him of it. And he decides to be kind of a hard ass about it and was like, I'm not going to let you take this shit. And they kill his wife and child and maim him. And he loses his hand and puts this big like hook on it instead, and the hook becomes a weapon in the movie. And I don't want to spoil the rest of it to anybody that hasn't seen it, but yeah, I love a good revenge story. So what were you kind of drawing from as far as your influences in terms of revenge story? Are you a fan of like Death Wish or any of the movies of those ilk?
I mean, I would say it's more Falling Down than Death Wish, where, because it's not really, I don't know if I put it in like a revenge thing, because there's not someone he needs to get that like did him wrong. He just wants to die, and he thinks this will be a way of like ending it without him being, without him being culpable of doing it himself, right?
Right.
And then, some things happen in the first issue that get him caught up with this local mob. And then they're kind of after him. And that is kind of propels the plot a little bit and gets you we start diving further each issue into this guy's, I don't want to say mental illness, but certainly trauma and personal headspace of where he's at, why he's there, and the way he feels about the world, and also the way the world looks at him, and how the world looks at this character he's become, and how that affects him and the way he looks at himself also, if that makes sense.
Without giving too much away, what's his motivation for wanting to die?
Well,
or is that too much of a spoiler alert?
No, I won't. I'll put it this way, and not everyone has some big grand event like you went to see Zorro with your parents, and then Joe Chill shot your parents in Crime Alley, and then you become Batman. That's not
Right.
always. It's not always that. Sometimes the idea of this book is that everyone has a reason to feel bad at times, and like I always say, like, the worst thing that ever happened to you is still the worst thing that ever happened to you, meaning it's in your head that's a 10, it's a 10, but compare that to someone else's 10, your 10 becomes a 5, say, right? But it's still a 10
Right.
to you because you don't know the difference, right? Because you've never felt anything worse than that. So the point is that I wanted to make this feel like anyone can understand his motivations, because everyone has just experienced the weight of life pressing them down, and how crippling that can feel sometimes, and how helpless you can feel sometimes, and you can't really put a finger on the one thing that's doing it. It's just a cumulative feeling of life weighing you down, if that makes sense. And then you'll we'll there's tossing some zhuzh up in there when you read it to figure out what it was. But that's kind of, I wanted that feeling to come across.
And that perfectly encapsulates the idea behind Falling Down, is that I don't think it was one singular event that pushed Michael Douglas over the edge. It was just a culmination of things that just
Right.
bubbled up inside him, and then one day he was just like, fuck it, which,
Yeah.
again, one of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah.
I just rewatched it again recently, and Michael Douglas has been on record by saying that's his favorite role he's ever played, and I'm like, absolutely. Like, it just, and everybody relates and sympathizes with him because he has dealt with uh, it was superficial shit that got him to that point. It was like he was a good person, he
Yeah.
was a good worker. He lost his relationship because, if you remember, Barbara Hershey was like being interrogated by the police, and they said, well, what did he do? What did he do that was so bad? And she was like, nothing. He never abused me or did anything like that. And with his job, he was just laid off, and like was living with his mom and things like
Yeah.
that. And then, had the car trouble and was just like, fuck this shit. And
Yeah. I
so
mean,
it was just,
yeah,
go ahead.
to be fair, I mean, Asian store clerks are tough to deal with. So they, I mean, come on, they're so yeah.
Because you lived in LA. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
I'm kidding. But
I'm not.
yeah, there, yeah, there's they
They were some boss. They were some boss motherfuckers during the LA riots, man. They didn't
oh
fuck
fuck
around.
yeah.
Those South
Dude,
Koreans, man.
those fucking sitting on, yeah, Koreans on the rooftops with shotguns guarding their goddamn, corner
Oh
stands.
yeah.
That's for real. But Koreans are the
Yeah.
hardest of all the Asians, I have to say.
Yeah.
Koreans are they're the top. Everyone district never, no one ever looks at them that way. But man, those guys are something else. You're like you're
Oh
Asian,
yeah.
but you're 6'3". What's going on? Like what?
That's interesting that you should bring up the Koreans, because whenever I was in the military, one of my drill instructors said that he went and trained with the what they call the Rock Marines, which are the Republic of Korea Marines in South Korea, and said
Okay.
they would do their physical training in the snow in shorts. He was like, those
Yeah,
motherfuckers are
they're hard.
crazy.
They're a different
Like,
breed.
straight up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, people talk about all the different, it's those Koreans, they're the ones. So, but yeah, it back to Falling Down. It just, yeah, it personifies just a general, like low grade depression and that's the thing I wanted to get across, so it could feel universal to people. So without spoiling more about the book and kind of some reveals in there and what the drive, I really wanted everyone to read and just kind of feel like yeah, like I get like I'd never put on a Halloween mask and chop someone up with a machete probably, but like I understand, you know, this is that's the beauty of comic books is you can tell, again, we're telling a story about this guy and his trauma and loss, but we're using this crazy avatar to tell the story, to kind of draw in an audience that maybe wouldn't read a character piece about that. So you can, you know, you can, that's the nice thing about comic books. You can mash it up and I can be like, okay, it's this vigilante thing. And people are like, oh, cool. And then a couple issues in, you're like, man, I really care about this Stan guy, you know. So you just gotta like get people, you got to move these different parts to get people involved in the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think we can definitely empathize with a lot of characters in, you know, movies like Falling Down, because, like you had mentioned in Avatar, we see that person. And me personally, like I said, you inspired me to start a book, and I took some trauma in my own life, and the way I would react to that trauma, the way that I want to react and the way that I want to respond is probably not a healthy thing and would probably land me in jail. That's like my you know, lizard brain, my monkey brain talking,
Right.
like
Yeah.
if I had it my way and I wouldn't get caught, that's what I would do. But because I try to harness creative energy, I was like, why not, like, let's put this into a book and
Yeah.
let's make this something that I can turn trauma into triumph with, and I can make money at it, and, you know,
Right.
hopefully inspire people to do things and, you know, channel their creative energy to as some form of catharsis, you know. So do you feel that you see aspects of Stan in your own self?
Oh, yeah. 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 Cause I mean, you know, um, without saying too much because of due to statutes of limitations in certain states, you know, I had an interesting youth. I was a hard scrabble youth on the rough and tumble path for a long time, and you know the ran afoul of the law, did some crazy shit, and just crazy lifestyle for a long time, and had, you know, was so I understand that snap and that kind of ability to you know, kind of not lose control while simultaneously being so in control, you know, uh, like
I feel you.
outwardly you look like you've lost your mind, but inwardly you're like, no, no, this is exactly like it's and it's a crazy feeling. So there's like yeah, there's a catharsis in writing that character, and also, you know, just feeling, like I said, I mean, I've felt the pressures of, you know, the world sometimes, or just personal experiences in life where you're like, God, you can't even necessarily pinpoint what it is. But you just feel like you don't know where to turn, right? And so yeah, definitely a lot of personal experiences. And then, yeah, the book, I started writing the book a couple months after my best friend, another comic, killed himself. So there was a lot of that on my mind. And, you know, what would make someone want to do that, how you would react to that, you know, maybe trying to and not accomplishing it, or just a lot of those type of thoughts. And I've always been such an advocate for exploring these things in art. The you know, I think we probably talked about this last time I was on the show, but you know, Clockwork Orange is one of my favorite, not one of, it is my favorite film. And
Fantastic.
yeah, and just an absolutely amazing book by Anthony Burgess, also, which a lot of people don't know. And the book, you know, if you just show someone the movie A Clockwork Orange, which I have tried to a lot of times in my life, people really kind of like, you know, like you're very quickly into like a gang rape scene, and like a, you know, it just, there's a lot of really crazy dark overtones. But it's people's inability to look past the ugliness to see the truth in the story that's being told in the art, right? Because like
Yeah.
Anthony Burgess wrote that book because in the 50s, because his wife he's English guy, and in Britain, his wife was actually attacked and raped. And this was like his catharsis of writing, like being like, oh man, like look at how violent society's getting, and if we extrapolate this into a future with people desensitized, and like, and paint this fictional motif of what the future could be like if we keep barreling down this road of, just absolute demoralization. This is what it could be. And it's a fantastical picture with a lot of crazy aspects. But then you start to realize, like, oh, that's why that's why this is this. And that's why in the movie, there's an author who they attack his wife and they rape his wife. And that's when they get arrested. And like, you really, you really start to see why the story is and what it is and why it's important to talk about those things and make art out of them, because those aren't things that go away just because we make every story have a happy ending.
Right.
They're things that we have to look at and grapple with and come to grips with and be able to conquer, and that way we can master them instead of them mastering us. That was a
Yeah,
long-winded answer
absolutely.
to whatever the question was.
No,
But
no, absolutely. Well, just if you had seen, aspects of yourself in Stan or whatever, but
yeah, yeah.
with the Clockwork Orange, it's interesting because I wasn't aware that Anthony Burgess had experienced that. So that must have been pretty traumatic, and what I guess a better way to deal with that trauma instead of
Right.
lashing out or taking some sort of action that he might end up regretting later is putting it to paper and being able to create some sort of art out of it.
Yeah.
And that movie does really make that whole situation look ugly. Like
Yeah.
it is shocking and it's horrific. But it's one of those things where if you kind of stick with it and you don't miss the forest for the trees, it's a
Right.
really it's a really, really compelling movie because you actually do end up sympathizing with Alex in the film because he is sort of a product of his environment. He is
Right.
definitely has no guidance in his life. His parents are just empty shells. He's got terrible friends. He's always delinquent from school. And I mean, really, if you want to be honest, I'd say that it probably starts with the parents. Like his parents are so just impotent to do anything to be able to try to
Yeah.
like help him and give him some sort of direction. And I'd say that's probably where it all starts. But like it I've always found it interesting because I wasn't when I was younger, I just liked the cool like shit about it, and like the music and the way that they looked, and just the
Yeah.
kind of avant-gardeness of it. But when you look at it, it's really a struggle between like religion versus the state,
Yeah.
because I've always said it like this: you can't force somebody to be good against
Mm.
their will. But
Mhm.
Alex wants to be good, but he doesn't want to be forced to be good through the Ludovico method. Like he wants to do it on his own and like find his own way and become like spiritually pure instead of through some sort of artificial treatment that is being imposed by the government.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to even bigger things of like nature versus nurture, and are we innately good, and can and also like what is good, what which is so subjective depending on how you look at things. And especially in an ever evolving society, as the benchmarks for morality move, what becomes acceptable and good. So it's very complex. And really, I mean, I encourage anyone to read the book and then watch the movie with really an open eyes and open heart, because my God, like it is such a powerful, I mean, film. Not just because I mean I'm a huge Stanley Kubrick fan anyway. Um,
Same.
so I mean he's the GOAT in my opinion.
Definitely.
So it's like but there's just so much there that you can chew on. You just have to really be willing to be open said, not miss the forest. Be willing to look at it and get past the ugliness, because that's where reality is. Reality is in the ugliness, and that's the part where there's growth and opportunity to learn.
Absolutely, 100%. Now, back to what we were saying about the comic. You've been touring the comic book conventions and whatnot. Were you an attendee of those sort of conventions before you actually started being a part of them with your book?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been going to comic conventions for over 20 years. I mean, I used to go to San Diego Comic Con every year. I've been to LA Con a bunch of times, and so some other conventions around the country. So I was a big attendee. I loved it. It's they've changed a lot. I mean, San Diego used to be a lot different when I'd go. I haven't been in 20 years, probably since like 2001. So
That's
more
the
than
big
20
one,
years.
right?
Yeah, San Diego is probably arguably the biggest. But it used to be more comic book focused. Now it's very pop culture, movies, manga, video games. But you got to have those things to prop up a dying industry. So they keep the doors open for the comic book nerds. But yeah, going as a vendor has been as a retailer, I guess, exhibitor, has been a different experience being on the other side of the table, but it's been very rewarding talking to independent creators and or but fans looking for that stuff and seeing them really like thirsty for good content in this medium, because it is a medium that is overwhelmingly full of mediocrity and IP that's just crapped out so they can sell lunch boxes and action figures and make movies. They don't give a shit about the comic books. Most of these companies, they just need to keep crapping them out so they can, keep the IP alive and relevant.
Yeah.
So it's good it's really interesting to talk to people who are very, very thirsty for like an actual story and actual deeper content.
What are the sort of demographics of the people that have been purchasing the book? Is it like older, younger, men, women?
It's
Koreans.
Yeah, well, it's been a mixed bag. It's been a very mixed bag. I would say probably I would have to say the majority is kind of probably my age men, or close to my age, but not by a lot. The number of female comic book fans has gone up like crazy over the last 10, 20 years, which is great. I mean, it's another, I'm just glad to have more people in the market, more people reading. A lot of, I mean, I've had older ladies who've never read comic books buy the book. It's like some old ladies who are just at a show and they're just walking around looking at stuff to something to do during the day. And I tell them about it, I'm like, oh, sure, support. I don't know if they ever read it, but buy it. So
you're like to speak more Asians, you're like Short Round in Temple of Doom. You're like, I got all your money. Ha ha ha.
Yes, I am great with old ladies. So old ladies love me. It's my demo. But yeah, I mean, it's been a very mixed bag. I mean, a lot of I mean, even some, younger people who are still, which is, I think, fewer and far between, just because there's less of them reading comic books. But most of them are reading manga or banging their avatar. I don't know. Whatever kids do these days. ODing on fentanyl. I don't know what they do. But
I almost did.
Yes. What's that?
I said I almost did, so they're probably up to it.
Yeah. Did you? Oh my God.
Yeah, no, to kind of sag a little bit, I've been clean and sober for 2 years now, but yeah, I got a bad batch and it had fentanyl in it because I believe they were trying to kill me, but I didn't die, so here I am still. But anyway,
Nice, nice. Yeah, well, good for you. Second, or lease on life, new lease on life.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's been a real mix of people, and it's nice to talk to people and just see the diversity of people who are, um, you can really tell when people are truly invested in it and want to read it. There's people who buy it because like, oh, I'll support your little thing, there's some of that,
Yeah.
which is fine. But then there's people where you tell them about, and they're like, oh shit, like that's, yeah, like they get it. They get what I'm saying. They get the message. They get that this is going to be a deeper thing, and they're into it. And yeah, and it's starting to be where some of the shows I'm doing, like there's a show in San Antonio I do like once a month, and I'm starting to see the same faces and people coming back around who've read it, and they're like, when's number 2 coming out? Like, this is so good. Like, thank you. This is great. I love it. You put me in the character. I understand what this guy's saying. And so it's really rewarding to have people connect with it in the way I was shooting for.
And you had mentioned that you were using a higher quality of comic book, like the material that you make it out of.
Yeah. So when we went to the printer, I wanted to there's different options for paper. I mean, 100 different options for paper quality, for the interior, for the cover. And I really was meticulous about how I wanted it to feel and look. And my goal was I wanted it to look as good or better. I mean, I honestly would be willing to say I don't think you would be able to find a monthly book coming out from any of them, maybe any comic book company right now, that has the same quality feel of cover and paper that we are offering every single issue. I mean, I read a lot of comic books from a lot of publishers, and I don't think there's one that's investing in the kind of quality that we are.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, like I was saying to you, I love a good quality book. I love a good quality anything, really. I think it's pretty awesome that you're, kind of stepping up the game and giving people a good quality product, I don't want to sound so reductive to call it a product, but you know what I'm saying, like being able to give them something that's not going to get beat up. The pages are not going to tear. They're not, I have so many old comic books from like the 80s that are just in horrible condition just because they're cheap and because right, essentially, yeah. And I guess this kind of begs the question, if you had a dream job of writing for 3 comic characters or 3 franchises, your top 3, like say somebody said, we want you to come and be a writer for X character or Y character, who would those 3 be?
Well, the first one would be X character. It would be X-Men. I this is the nerdiest thing you'll hear today, but I have what I would call my Bible for a pitch for X-Men that would probably span, depending on how committed Marvel was to doing it, it would easily span 5 to 10 years. That is an epic, and I am like an X-Men nerd. That's my favorite comic book. I grew up on the X-Men, and like this is a arc inside of arcs with a bigger arc that like soup to nuts over like literally, again, 5 to 10 years, depending on how much they want to do of it, would come full circle and have like this bigger story that's being told the entire time. So that would be the number one. If I could ever get my hands on that franchise. I think I've tweeted enough horrible stuff that Disney will never let me near any of their IP. So that's just something I have to come to grips with, which is shitty
Right.
because, I mean, I fully anticipate my comic book to go well enough that, I mean, there's another book coming up behind it and more. And I fully anticipate, and this is maybe just my hubris and me believing in myself, that at some point I'm going to have opportunities to write on a bigger scale in comic books, right? But that scale can only get so big because literally, I mean, I just stand up comedy for a living. Like, you just go watch one 5-minute clip of me on the internet. Disney's like, fuck no, we can't like, if anyone does a Google search of me, you can't scrub. There's no fucking, the wolf from Pulp Fiction couldn't scrub enough of my backstory to make sure
Well,
someone didn't find what,
but look at James Gunn, though. Do you see how much cover they're running for James Gunn? Like, have you seen Romeo
yeah,
and Juliet? There's a big penis monster in there, and he's
yeah,
tweeted some outlandish shit in his career. But the Guardians of the Galaxy 3,
that's true. That is true. But
so
here's the thing:
anything's
like,
possible.
they will sell their soul. I mean, you do make a point. They will sell their souls because I mean, it's Hollywood. They're soulless fucks. They don't give a shit as long as you can make them a buck is what they really care about. But the comic books aren't really where the money is for them, but it is where the fans will complain the loudest, probably.
Yeah.
So, the movies, you get closer to Hollywood and you get closer to them being, all fucking Anunnaki, fucking lizard people that don't give a shit if they just want to suck your soul and make fucking gold rain from the heavens or whatever. So they don't give a shit. They tried to be firm with James Gunn, and then they're like, oh wait, he makes us money. We forgot. And give him a job again. Especially Marvel, because he just went to DC and started making them money, and then like, oh wait, actually, come back and do part 3 because we want you to make us money also, because we really don't care that much. We just had to pretend like we cared. So
I wish they'd extended the same grace to Gina Carano. Because what she said was significantly not as bad as any of the shit James Gunn has said in the past.
Yeah, Gina Carano, R. Kelly, Bill Cosby. What's the big deal, guys? Come on, it's in the past. What? No, Gina Carano. Gina Carano was not her. What she did was very insignificant. But also she, like, if that was Pedro Pascal, it would be different. They need him. They don't need Gina Carano. That's the thing.
Even though I really like Gina Carano on that show.
I did too. But like the show, I mean, was the show better or worse without her? Like, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, she's not a linchpin that's like holding the whole thing together. I totally get it. Yeah, she's expendable.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And could probably do the next Expendables. She could do that movie. That's a good segue for her. I'm sure Stallone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, that's
hey, you get canceled in Hollywood. I got a job for you. I actually did a show that was like it was like Star Wars. It was we basically ripped the plot from Book of Boba Fett. It was called Tulsa King. You might like it.
Was it like Book of Boba Fett? I haven't seen it.
Almost beat for beat. Yes, like he goes around and like
in the first.
Well, okay, so in Book of Boba Fett, he gets out of the Sarlacc pit. In Tulsa King, he gets out of prison, right? And he just goes around and picks up a bunch of misfits and criminals along the way, and basically starts a crime empire. I was sitting there, I watched it with my mother, and I was like, this is Book of Boba Fett. I was like, this is Book of Boba Fett to a T. It was wild.
That's funny. I haven't seen it, but what was the question?
Cancellation, being able to write. We talked about X-Men and
So okay, so I don't think I hope so, but my God, it seems unlikely. The other things I would want to write, there's this may be obscure, but Jim Lee, the great Jim Lee, who penciled X-Men in the early, if you were a fan of the X-Men, the 90s cartoon, Jim Lee created those costumes. His version of the X-Men is what you're watching. When he left Marvel and started Image Comics, he had a book called Wildcats. I have a really, really cool Wildcats story I wrote. It's not really, it's more Wildstorm, which was Jim Lee's universe. It's more like a story about his universe. It's called Wildcats, but that would be one of them. And then I actually just recently wrote this, but I have a really, really, what I think would be a really cool Ninja Turtles story.
Nice.
Yeah, it's like, it kind of, I don't know why, it just, I mean, I don't even really read. I take that. I just started reading the new Ninja Turtles because Jason Aaron, a writer I like, started writing it, and it's pretty good. But I wrote this
Are Eastman and Laird still involved in Ninja Turtles? I don't think they are they?
No. So, long time ago, Kevin Eastman sold his half, and Peter Laird still owned it. And then Peter Laird sold the rest of it to Paramount. Paramount owns it now. Nickelodeon, Paramount, Viacom based. Viacom owns it. And then Eastman recently came back, and he will write some stories and do some covers and stuff, but that's it. Yeah, I don't know what struck me that made me start thinking about this, but it just hit my head one day I'm like, oh, this is a really cool, interesting, dark kind of Ninja Turtles story. And it would probably be like a 2 to 3 year arc. But I think it's a really interesting take that could shake some things up. And also it shakes things up, but I wrote it, there's an out at the end that we can set it back to status quo for all the nerds out there.
I was a huge Ninja Turtles fan growing up. It's funny. I go back and I watch scenes from the '87 cartoon sometimes, and the cartoon wasn't nearly as good as the book. Like, the cartoon is definitely kind of more kidified, but that was my first exposure to it. Like, I saw the cartoon before I knew about the comic books or anything else about the whole universe. And also, I have to ask you this question before I forget, because I just put a poll out on the Hell's Heart Instagram. Who's your favorite Ninja Turtle?
Sorry, you froze up.
I said, who's your favorite Ninja Turtle?
No, yeah, I had a feeling you were going to ask that. Yeah, favorite Ninja Turtle. That's an interesting question, and probably one that's changed over the years.
Okay.
My answer is Michelangelo.
Okay.
Michelangelo, for a couple reasons. First of all, he was the original turtle. He was the first one that Kevin Eastman drew, was Michelangelo. So he was the first child, they call him, even though he's presented as like the youngest in the comics. He is technically the first, as far as creative, he was the first child. And I think he is the most complicated and dedicated. Like, his outward personality of like party guy is really a dichotomy, and like hides who he really is. I think there's a lot of depth in there. Like, I don't know if you ever read like The Last Ronin. It's a comic book. So it's a Ninja Turtles book that came out a couple years ago.
Is that the samurai one?
Yeah.
That looked awesome.
You got to read it. It's so good.
Okay.
It's Michelangelo is Michelangelo is the Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So, for me, I got two options actually. For the video games, it was Donatello, just because he had the bow and because the bow could reach super far and you could fling the foot soldiers and shit like that. But as I've gotten older, I feel like Raphael is the most real one. Like as far as and whenever they said he was going to be the subject of the movie, you were like, Raphael, not Leonardo. He's the leader,
Yeah.
like that doesn't make any sense. But like to kind of frame it through his eyes, like he's very cynical, he's very nihilistic,
Yeah.
but he definitely has a lot of heart, and to me, he's the one that I can connect with the most just because I also have a lot of cynicism and nihilism in my life. And so that's why as I got older, I really started to appreciate him. But what you were saying about Michelangelo being the oldest, I think he just got burnt out on all the pizza he ate. I mean, it's like drugs, and it's just like the younger
Oh,
ones don't have as much experience with it, so they're a little bit more level-headed.
yeah. Yeah, Raphael is an easy like uh POV character because he's like the Wolverine of the group, you know. He's like the cool
Yeah,
guy, the edgy one. It's probably the most interesting point of view. If it's the most compelling for an action story. I'll say that.
yeah,
If you're looking for like an
definitely.
action story, it's the most compelling. If you're looking for a very depth, nuanced story, it's probably not. It's not as compelling. The other characters could be more compelling. I think part of the problem with like Leonardo and Donatello for me is Leonardo is kind of like Captain America, or Superman, where like
Yeah,
the answer is always do good and do better,
let's
do good and
go.
do better.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and like
yeah,
that's fine, but you need a little more than that.
yeah,
Donatello is like a little too sciencey for me.
yeah. They're
So
boring, I think, both those two.
there's some writers in the books have made them interesting at times, but yeah, I would Michelangelo and Raphael have the most nuance for sure.
For sure. So we got
There's
X-Men.
actually a
We got. Go ahead.
I was gonna say there's a theory of why each Ninja Turtle has their weapons for a reason.
Oh, okay.
Let's see if I can find it.
And one thing I also wanted to ask you whenever you are finished or talking about this theory was what do you think about the current state of Ninja Turtles?
Okay. Oh, here it is. So there's a theory that he intentionally chose weapons that would help them grow and overcome their flaws. So he gave Leonardo the katanas to represent leadership and the need to sometimes make difficult, decisive actions, even if they are not always easy. With Raphael, the size to encourage patience and control due to the defensive nature of the weapon as opposed to like an offensive one, because Raphael can be hot-headed. Donatello, the bow staff, represents intelligence and adaptability, as the staff can be used in various ways depending on the situation. And this is the one I love the most. Michelangelo, the nunchucks, designed to teach focus and discipline, as nunchucks are the most difficult to handle properly without concentration.
Wow, that's interesting. I've never heard that before.
So, I don't know if Eastman ever validated that. I honestly doubt they put that much thought into it, but it certainly worked out that way.
Yeah.
So
definitely. But the current state of Ninja Turtles, like I saw the new thing that Paramount had put out, and they looked so skinny, and they looked like they hadn't eaten any pizza, and I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's a weird franchise that has to live in so many worlds. And when it has to live in so many worlds, it can't really live in any, if that makes sense. Because like you want to have a comic book that appeals to comic book readers, and comic book readers are middle-aged men. That's most of the, but then you want to have a cartoon because you sell action figures. And well, if you have a cartoon, you probably should have a comic book also that matches the cartoon. So you'll have a cartoon version of the comic book. And like, it's all based around a really brutal, dark, original comic book. So it's tough to, and then you want to make movies that are like live action ones, like Michael Bay, that are like more extreme. And it's a tough,
They're too strong in that though.
Yeah, that's crazy. Those were terrible.
They look like they look like they put Androstine on their pizza. Like they're fucking ridiculous.
Shooting up trend. But the it is a little tough to decide kind of where you want them to land, because there's so many people. I mean, you're talking about a franchise that's been around for 40 years. So you have, again, like people my age, I'm 42, who grew up with the Ninja Turtles and still consuming them in multiple mediums. And then they want new kids to be like, here's a cartoon, here's a action figure, here's a backpack. So it's just a tough line to walk. I think they just need to accept they got to do what Marvel did and finally embraced R-rated content, and just was like, we understand these movies are for adults, and some things we make for kids. It's not all just the same Disney wand waved over it for the same general audience of, it's like, no, this is for adults. This is for kids. And there's a difference. And I think they're kind of learning that. And I think the whole market is learning that they can do both simultaneously.
I think that's why Deadpool excelled. I mean, because that was clearly for adults,
Yeah. I mean, really, Marvel turned the corner with Logan. That's where everything really changed for Marvel, and the success of Deadpool. But I mean, Deadpool is always a thing that was like, you could keep separate because of what it is. But Logan really showed that, like, oh, this is an A-list character with an R-rated film, hardcore, and like, this was explosive and one of our best received films. So like, oh, we can do this. We can make this, and people will eat it up. Now they're going that direction with new Disney Plus show content, like the new Daredevil show and stuff. So they're really, they finally realized that, like, oh, our audience isn't kids. The audience for this is adults. Like, some kids may watch it, but the audience is adults. So we might as well make it for the people who, because I mean, it's like, I'm not shitting on, the Miss Marvel show. I'm glad it exists for whoever likes it, but nobody asked for that. Not a person out there that was like, we need a Miss Marvel show. So they're starting to finally understand their audience. It only took 20 years.
20 years. Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah. And I'm kind of with you there, like, in that, they need to kind of learn to read the room a little bit. But, I think we only got the two. We got the X-Men and the Ninja Turtles. And what was your third?
The Wildcats.
Wildcats. Okay. All right.
Yeah, the total, because like Wildcats went through a weird thing where Jim Lee left Image and he sold his whole catalog to DC Comics. And then DC Comics pretended like they gave a shit, and then they stopped producing any Wildstorm product. And it's such a rich universe and such an interesting universe of characters, and like that they had set up, and the whole all the threads of what made their universe tick. So I kind of took the broader aspects of this the foundations of the Wildstorm universe, kind of mashed together some characters to make a Wildcats team, and made it make sense as to why they've been gone and what's new. So yeah, if they ever wanted to bring Wildcats back with a real fervor and kind of a reboot, I got you.
Nice. I noticed you posted something up the other day about Silverhawks, and I didn't know that anybody remembered that.
Fuck yeah. Good. I
Dude,
love this.
I used to watch the shit out of that show, and I'd actually forgotten about it. I was like, there was a show. I was like, I remember this show, and they looked like eagles and angels, and there was a guy with a cowboy hat, and there was a little red one that didn't say anything, and I was like, oh shit, yeah, the Silverhawks. I was like, that show was awesome.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah,
But
it was because it came on right after Thundercats.
That's right.
It was back to back with
similar sounding names.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Thundercats came on and Silverhawks
shows.
Everyone always likes Thundercats more, and like Silverhawks is always like the weird thing that came on after it, and I always thought it was way better.
I agree.
Yeah, there's a new comic book coming out with the writer. Yeah.
Dude,
so it's I love that old stuff.
Yeah, I definitely, I think, was more of a Silverhawks fan than I was a Thundercats fan. But what, like, is there anything like comic book movie wise that you've seen that you kind of like were really digging on, like recent stuff?
Recent comic book movie.
Madam Web, maybe.
Here's the thing. Okay. I don't remember who I was talking to online. Yeah, I saw Madam Web. I see all the Marvel movies. Anything comic book related, I see it. But I also go in knowing what I'm getting into. So like with Madam Web, I'm like, this is just going to be a 90-minute ditty. I can turn off my brain and just have some fun, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad. Like, it's not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination, but like, I was never bored, and I never wanted to leave. Like the new Joker movie, I was tapped out. Like 30 minutes in, I'm like, this was a mistake. I should have, I'm like, I knew it could have gone either way. I'm like, this could be really good or really bad. And really quickly, I was like, this is going to be really bad. So I'm not sure I've seen any comic book content new that I've loved. Even Deadpool Wolverine was like, it was like fine. It was fun. It was fan service. It was a lot of like, it's just all money shots, right? Which is fine.
It was nice to see Wesley Snipes' Blade in there. I think they need to revisit that.
Yeah, that was cool. I mean, again, it was just fan service stuff, which like is another thing the comic books movies are doing, that they realize that who their fans are, and they're like, nostalgia, like, let's get all the Spider-Man in one movie. Let's get, like, it's just that stuff, which like that works for a little bit, but eventually you're gonna have to write a real script soon, Marvel. So I don't, there hasn't been a ton of comic book content that I loved. I mean, I didn't even like the last Batman movie, the
Batman.
Yeah, no,
I didn't see it yet. Everybody tells me I get like mixed kind of reactions to it. I'm like, people are telling me I should watch it, people are telling me I shouldn't watch it, and I guess you're not on board with it.
I would say watch it. I always encourage I never tell anyone to not watch a movie I don't like, because you may like the movie, fine. Best case scenario, it's someone else I can talk shit about the movie with, because they also hate it. That's so that's even more of a benefit. So I'm waiting. I don't know. They got that new Captain America movie. I don't think that's going to be very great. The new Fantastic Four movie, I'm cautiously optimistic. But
they will not give up on Fantastic Four. They will not give up.
Well, No, they're doing it again. They're running it back, baby, running it back.
We'll get a good one
But
eventually,
it's
I'm
one of those
hoping.
movies too where I'm like, I just think that is such a big franchise that's one of the movies that Marvel doesn't take a chance on. Meaning they don't want to push any boundaries. They don't want to ruffle any feathers. We want to make it so palatable that it'll make $1 billion. So they're not really doing anything because they're trying to appease everyone, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah, man. You know what you were saying too
um,
about
I will say I
making
saw
controversy.
Nosferatu.
Dude, I saw Nosferatu as well. What did you think?
I fucking loved it. I fucking that I loved every minute of it. The soundscape on that film, if that does not win a fucking Academy Award for the sound on that film, it's a travesty. That thing
Yeah.
is phenomenal. Like, I
Yep.
mean, just everything about it, the tone, the color they use, how the way they keep kind of going back to like a black and white. It's not true black and white, but really like a black and white palette. Um,
Yeah.
in scenes, and I mean, it was everyone acting in it. The girl, I think it's Johnny Depp's daughter, right, that plays
Yeah,
Rose.
Lily Rose Depp. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
Or yeah, she's fucking, my God, she deserves an Academy Award too for her.
She brought it. Yep.
Yeah, the the guy who plays the main guy, what's his name?
Nicholas Hoult. That guy's been awesome. Everything I've seen him in, I think the first thing I saw him in was Mad Max Fury Road, and I'm like, this guy's really good. I hope to see more of him.
Yeah, I mean, that movie was killer in my opinion. I 10 out of 10 for me. So,
For sure.
but
For sure.
I
And I'm
like what's his name, that director.
Robert Eggers.
Yeah, like I love The Witch. I like The White House a lot, or The Lighthouse a lot. So,
Yeah, I was a big fan, and I love the previous incarnations of Nosferatu too. I love the 1922 version. I really like the 1979 version directed by Werner Herzog, and it's like even with King Kong, I like every single incarnation of it to varying degrees. Like a lot of people hate on the 2005 Peter Jackson one. I kind of liked it. I thought it was good, but
yeah,
like 1933 version will always have a special place in my heart.
favorite movie of mine. I just rewatched that a couple months ago. I love that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Well, what can we I don't know if I asked this question, but like, you know, do you have plans to possibly do a film adaptation for Kill Stan? If somebody like dumped a big pile of money and a big pile of coke in front of you and was like, Deece, man, we got to do this movie. Like, what would you say?
Do you have any $100 bills I can roll up? Then I would do all the coke, and then they wouldn't see me for a couple months, and then I would come back and probably have a venereal disease, and some kids
They'd
in
have to
other.
pay for your medical treatment, your penicillin shots. Yeah, I get
Yeah.
you.
I would. Yeah. I mean, I would be kidding if I told you I hadn't thought about that. Not the amount of coke, but someone wanting to take this movie or take this to and adapt it to the screen, whether a show or a animated or film. And I would, yeah, it'd be great. It'd be obviously be really, really great. I think I I think the biggest problem would be that I wouldn't I wouldn't want it. I couldn't just cut it loose and be like, okay, make your adaptation. I would be very, very hands-on and very like, it's got to be approved by me or it's not coming out. Like, I don't want them to Disneyfy this story. I don't want them to neuter the best parts of it and the most important parts of it. I would really want to make sure it was told the way I wanted it to be told. And if that means it didn't they didn't do the movie, I would rather not
You'd
do
be
the
fine with
movie
that.
come out in a way that I didn't represent the product, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think everybody likes to have a certain degree of creative control, which, I think we talked about Spawn the last time, and it's interesting that, Todd McFarlane got to helm that movie, but was kind of impeded by the producers and the, powers that be, in that he didn't really get to make the movie that he wanted to make.
Yeah, yeah, which for better or worse, I don't know. Because I'll tell you what, it's so funny you say that. I last night I fell asleep watching It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and I woke up in the middle of the night and the Spawn movie was on. I don't know how it got to that. I don't know how my Roku decided that Sleeping Deece needed to have this fucking 1996 Spawn movie in the back of his head.
Oh
But like
God.
I woke up to, and I forgot what's his name. Sheen is in that movie.
Yeah,
As like
Martin
the bad.
Sheen is oh God, I can't remember his name. Oh, um, yeah, I remember he's the main bad dude. Jason
Yeah, but
Wynn.
I'm just like, yeah, and I'm just like, I wake up and I'm just like, what is going on? And I'm like, I'm like, am I even fucking hallucinating right now? And I go, and I'm watching it going, did Martin Sheen just forget how to be an actor during this movie, or is the directing just that bad? Is the director so
Yeah,
horrible? He's like, no, do it hackier. No, make it
that
completely unbelievable. Say it in a way
that movie is
no
disappointing.
one real ever would. And like, so I stayed up and watched part of it. I forgot how fucking bad that movie is. Like, it's
Oh,
so,
one of the biggest like cinematic letdowns in terms of
yeah.
like when you see the previous material that comes before it, like the comic and like the HBO animated series
Oh,
is the fucking shit. It's so
so
good.
good. Yeah, yeah. That's all that you can actually. It's all on YouTube. If you can't find anywhere else, all all the seasons are on YouTube. When I'm on the road a
Mhm.
lot, I just pull up YouTube and I watch it before I go to bed. That show, um, that's really good. To be fair, the the Spawn comic book also has like almost no legs to stand on as far as like continuity or backstory, because like this is a real thing. And like I am such a fan of the 90s comic books, despite a lot of them being crap. They're fun, but they're crap. And Todd McFarlane obviously is a phenomenal comic book creator, but literally he got to issue, this is how little the Image guys like thought out their books when they launched this new brand and launched these books. Todd McFarlane got to issue number 7 and was like, I don't know what else is happening. He's like, I got to get someone to write this book. So he tapped Neil Gaiman, RIP, or at least his career,
Well, yeah.
Alan Moore, and what's the guy's name? The guy who wrote Cerberus. I forget his name. Anyway, 3 other big time creators in the industry to write an issue of Spawn. And he tapped Neil Gaiman for number 9. And Neil Gaiman's like, okay, so like, who does Spawn fight? Like, tell me about him. And Todd was like, I don't know. I don't. He's just like, He's just like, there was no. He had no idea who he fought, who the bad guy. What was really? He's like, he planned nothing. There was no
Oh
story.
no.
Really, I mean, if anything, the HBO show was like instrumental in creating a story for Spawn, because Todd McFarlane had like nothing. He's just like, Spawn.
I was about to ask that.
Yeah, he's just like, Spawn's like being creepy and like talks to the clown again and fights a homeless guy, and then it looks cool, and that's it. And like that was just kind of every issue. If you read the early issues, it's really like going nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved the series though. I thought it was a way better story and a way better just all around, just so much like leaps and bounds better than the cinematic representation of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And they're still talking about doing that new version with Jamie Foxx. We'll see if it ever happens. So
Yeah, they've been talking about that forever though.
yeah, then Jamie Foxx got fucking poisoned by P. Diddy, and the
Oh yeah.
whatever happened, I don't know.
That's
He
true.
like
That's
almost
true.
died. So they're still talking about
Well,
it. Hopefully it happens.
what's one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self? I didn't get to ask you that last time.
Oh man, do more drugs. Um,
No,
the
do not.
uh, I mean, and this is coming from a guy who did a lot of drugs, who rarely said no to drugs. So the uh,
McGruff
um,
didn't get through to you, huh?
no, no. I remember when I was in like sixth grade, we watched this. The one of the local sheriffs rolled in this the TVs. You remember the TVs on carts back when they had big
Oh yeah.
they roll them in and they put in the VHS, and they showed us this tape, the Dare tape, and it was this kid who like was with the wrong crowd. This cartoon of a kid got with the wrong crowd, like smoked weed after school, and then went on this. It was like a psychedelic trip, and I just remember I like I I said out loud, I go, that doesn't happen. And my teacher was like, wait, what did you say?
How
I'm
would
like,
you know?
he's like, nothing. you know, so like, I'm like, dude, I'm like, listen, I've smoked weed and I've done acid. That kid just fucking that kid smoked angel dust. That kid did not smoke weed alone. So, like that kid's just fucking smoking sticks right now. He's high on Sherm.
Angel dust.
So
You ever hear that song, Gil Scott Heron?
no,
I'm gonna have to send you that because it's awesome. Disregard the content, what it talks about, but the fucking bass line in it is awesome.
Have you ever heard the song "Smoking Sticks" by Coolio?
No,
You remember Coolio, right?
of
Yeah.
course. Gangsta's
Yeah, so
Paradise. Yeah.
yeah, on his first album, he's got this song called "Smoking Sticks." You got to listen to it. It's so funny. It's all about getting high on Sherm sticks and like fucking doing crazy shit. Um, and it's who would have guessed that guy would have died from smoking crack at a young age. The guy whose first album he had songs about fucking running around naked smoking Sherm. Who could have seen that coming?
This video is getting demonetized.
Yeah. What would I have told my younger self? I don't know, man. I mean, honestly, here's the thing. Like, I want to say I would have told myself to start sooner on this comic book, but also this comic book didn't start coming into this book didn't start flourishing until 2020. I wanted to write comic books my entire life. And I don't know if I would have been able to put something out that mattered as much or done the right, also like,
Yeah.
also would have taken me off the path of the things I have done, which I love so much. So, it's tough. Yeah, it's tough to say what I would have done.
Well, that you could say that the story hadn't written itself yet, and that you were, like you said, doing some of the other things that you enjoy. So maybe that would be a good thing, just find things that you enjoy, and then eventually, like the comic book idea that I had, it's just kind of like, because I'd always thought about doing one too, and then I was just like, I don't know what I'd do it about, and then it just hit me one night. I was like,
Yeah.
yes, this is what I want to do, like this is the story, and I literally wrote out the story to my friend that's, he actually does the artwork for my shirts, and, just kept feeding him ideas, and I was like, let's do it, man. And so we did it. So yeah, I mean, I think, just continue to do what you enjoy, and then, maybe you'll have some sort of epiphany someday to where you can be able to, put out something that means something to you, and that, again, as a form of catharsis, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've written a million comic book scripts, and I have hundreds of ideas that I've come up with over the years, and I always wanted to do it. But I'm glad that this is the first one that came out. There's ones that I've written in the past that are going to come out after this, but I don't think they would have been good first projects. I don't think they would have been as, I don't think they were maybe ready to be tackled or fully birthed yet. So I'm glad that it does make me, I just wish I had more time because I have so much I want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, if this takes off, I'm going to just be writing like crazy, trying to get all the content out there. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say what I would, so maybe invest in Apple. That would say, something like that. So
yeah, that'd be a good one. So you've got the Kickstarter. It's going to be launched relatively soon. When can we expect a release for Kill Stan issue 2?
Yeah, so the Kickstarter goes live Monday, February 3rd. So if you can follow the Kickstarter pre-launch page now. It's on all my socials. Follow the Kickstarter, get the updates for when it launches, but it'll go live February 3rd. We're going to run for about a month. And then we should have physical copies of Kill Stan number 2 early March.
That's awesome. And I can't wait to get my hands on a copy, because everything that you've told me about it, everything that I've seen, and just you as a personality, I know that it's going to be a great book. And I know that everybody else is going to enjoy it as well. And I wish you the best of success on the comic book circuit. And I hope that your other ideas get fully realized as well. Like you said, you get that one, and then it just becomes like a watershed, and all these other ideas kind of just, coagulate into whatever project that it is that you're doing. So I wish you the best of success, sir. And, we're going to post all the links to the Kickstarter and all your social media accounts where we can find you at. And again, I want to go ahead and promote my merchandising brand, Hell's Heart Merch Company. Go to the address hellsheartco.bigcartel.com. Use the code 20 for 20% off your entire order. And I am going to throw up some samples here real quick, and I think Deece has seen these before, but in case he hasn't, I'll show them to you again. We've got the Steve McQueen Bullet shirt. We've got Black Flag. Got Psycho 2. We've got Randy Scream, or excuse me, Tatum Scream Glow in the Dark. We've got a Randy Scream Glow in the Dark, and we've also got a Star Trek 3 Search for Spock shirt. So yeah, check those out. Like I said, that's just a handful. We got this RoboCop versus Terminator one on there too. Got a whole bunch, probably about 50 designs on there. So pick one up, 20% off your entire order. Do it. All right. So once again, I want to thank my guest, Deece Casillas, and you can purchase his book, Kill Stan. Like I said, we will post the links here in the bottom of the comment section. Give him a follow on all his social media outlets. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending. And like I said, please like, subscribe, share, and click on that bell for notifications. Namaste. God bless. Be good, everybody. Thank you so much, Deece.
Thank you. Peace.
Hell's Heart, lights, game, money, power.